Let's talk for a couple of minutes about how to open an image as a smart object. I'm here in the bridge and I've got a DNG object, or a digital negative, a raw file, that I want to open. Basically what I do is I double click that image and it opens in Camera Raw. Now in Camera Raw I can go ahead and make all the changes that I need to make, and normally what I would do is I would just go down to where it says Open Image and click on that. If I hold down my Shift key, Open Image changes to Open Object, and that will create a smart object for me. Now, if I want the default situation to be Open Object rather than Open Image, what I do is I go to this line here that looks like a link, and I go in and click on the box here that says Open in Photoshop as Smart Objects. And what that'll do is that'll change my default so that my default will open every image in Camera Raw as an object, as a smart object. Now, if I want to open it just as a flat image, all I have to do is hold my Shift key down and I can open it as an image. But you can see here that if I click on Open Object, what's going to happen is Photoshop is going to come up and it's going to open my image. And you can see over here that this is a smart object. Okay, what are the other ways? Let's close this, not save it. We come back in to the bridge, and I can go under the File menu. And when I go to the File menu, I come down to Place in Photoshop. And when I place it in Photoshop, it automatically opens it as a smart object, and it uses the settings that were previously made within Camera Raw. So if I need to upgrade that or update that image, the raw image, basically all I do is double click and I'm in here and I can go ahead and make any changes that I want to make. Let's bring the exposure up a little bit like that, and we'll just click OK. Okay, now, are there other ways of opening this? Yes. Let me close this image. I'm not going to save it. And I'm in Photoshop now. So what I can do is I can go up to the File menu in Photoshop and just say Open as Smart Object. Then I can just navigate to whatever image that I want to open. And let's just take this one right here and open this one, and it will come in as a smart object. You can see here that it's in as a smart object. Now the same thing works if I'm coming in from the mini bridge. This is in CS5. If I were to take an image in the mini bridge and not double click it to open it, but if I just take the image and just drag it into an existing image, it comes in through Camera Raw. We'll go ahead and make our changes on the image here, and we'll bring this in as a smart object. Now notice when it comes in as a smart object, let me get this out of the way, I have this big X in here because what happens is the image has come in at the same size as my original image, the same height as my original image. So what I can do now is I'm holding down my Shift key so that I can maintain my aspect ratio. I can change this to whatever size I need it and just click Enter when I'm done, and it brings it in as a smart object. So that if I need to change the settings in Camera Raw, all I really have to do is go in and double click that image and I can change those again. Okay, so now, are there any other ways of bringing things in as smart objects? Well, that's basically the way that you would do it. You go to the File menu here and you bring it in. Okay, now what happens if I have a smart object and I want it not to be a smart object anymore? Well, that's easy. I have my layer highlighted. I come over to my layer menu here and I come down and I just go to Smart Objects, and at the bottom of that it says Rasterize. And now this is no longer a smart object. Okay, if I double click on this, look at what happens. I get my layer style. So it's really no longer a smart object. Now if I have a layer that's not a smart object and I want to make it a smart object, I can do the same thing here. I can come under the image menu and I can go, under the layer menu, I can go to smart objects. I can convert this to a smart object, and now it's a smart object. Now if I double click on this, since it was a flattened layer before, it was not a smart object before, when I double click on this, it doesn't know that this was a raw image, so it just opens up the image itself. Now I can make my changes on this. Let's go in and put a curve on it, make it a little contrastier like that, and then I can close this and I would save it. And when this updates, you can see that it's updated my smart object. So that's how we can create a smart object from a layer that is not a smart object. That's how we can open an image as a smart object. But let me show you one other thing. Remember, a smart object is nothing more than a container. And right now, I'm going to take these two layers, which are both smart objects. I'm going to do a shift click between the two of them, so they're both selected. And now I'm going to come over here to my layer menu. I'm going to come down to smart objects, and I'm going to convert this to a smart object. And so now this single image here is a smart object. If I double click on the smart object here, I get my warning, and all of a sudden I've got my two layers. So what I can do is save this. Let's close it, and let's save it, and now this updates to just have that single layer there. If I double click again, I can come in, I get my image with the two layers on it right there, and I can go ahead and I can double click on the smart object layer here, and it's going to open up whatever was inside that packet. If it was the raw file, then I could make my raw changes here. I can go in. Let's bring this like this. Okay, I'm going to close this and I'm going to save it. And you can see it updates that. And now I'm going to close that smart object and I'm going to save it. And you can see that it updates here. So this is how you can create and to rasterize smart objects.